Awesome. So I'm going to do kind of a little quick introductions here and set the agenda. So my name is Fletcher Wimbush. I am the CEO of the Hire Talent, and our latest product is Discovered. And under that product suite is Work Styles Discovered, this cool disc assessment that we are re-releasing here, and that we're here to really talk to just have an educational seminar here on how you can use your insights from a disc assessment to leverage business results. So as you guys will learn in this seminar, I am a high D. So I'm all about results. Let's get to the cut to the chase, right? And so I wanted this webinar to not just share and educate and help people get maybe a high level and some deeper insights in how you can leverage DISC to grow yourself personally or to enhance an organization or teamwork, but how does it actually translate to results in the workplace, right? So that was the thinking behind this webinar. So we're going to share high level, hey, what is DISC? What does it mean? How do you understand it? What are the different personality types? We're going to share about different personality, personal motivators, personal stressors, growth areas and strategies. So how do you leverage this information to address those different areas? That's where it's commonly used. It's also used to, just like Al said, he's putting on a communications workshop to enhance communication and reduce friction and to enhance just overall team performance. But in the nitty gritty, how does that drive results? We're going to talk a lot about those, and we have 5 different mini case studies we're going to cover. So those are going to be super interesting. If you stay to the end and you need continuing education credits for your SHRM certification or your HRCI, you'll get a 1-hour continuing education credit for staying through the webinar. And then everybody who's been invited to the webinar, we were giving away 5 free DISC assessments. So if you signed up using a personal email address, unfortunately, we cannot set up a trial or an account for you and issue the credits without a work email or address. So feel free here. I've got here in the chat, you can send us your work email there, or you can drop it in the chat. Aaron and Anna and Amelia are here to help facilitate any one-off questions there that you might have, but send us your work email. We'll set you up with an account so that you can have 5 free DISC assessments. And actually, if you showed up today, you get 5 more. So you signed up, you got 5 today for showing up, you get 5 more. That's 10 free assessments. So if you have a small team, you can have everybody on your team complete these DISC assessments. They get their own very personalized report. And you can begin to leverage DISC to be better communicating there. So if you haven't got those yet, drop your email in there, or shoot an email to info@thehiretalent, and we'll make sure you get it set up with your DISC credits. If you are an individual and you maybe are unemployed and you're looking for a new job, or you want to work on your personal skill sets and work on, say, your emotional intelligence, your communication skills, or maybe you're just like a husband and a father like me and you just want to get better at communicating with your wife and your children, right? Go ahead. We have a service offering for you there. I'll drop that in here. Al and Deanna are doing what we'll call a public session. So anybody not, you don't have to be connected to an organization. You can, be an individual, or maybe you are part of an organization, but your, boss isn't signing off on this yet. You can sign up for their workshop, and we're going to go a lot deeper into this. Obviously, you'll get your DISC assessment, and then they'll go into a kind of a deep dive here on how to leverage those. That is a $300 workshop. It's well worth it. It's fantastic. Al and Deanna are really, really great coaches on this. So that's a couple of things. We'll reintroduce this as we go. I am being the CEO of Discover. This is something I've spent literally my life since I was 7 years old. I'm 41. I'll date it and tell you how old I am. So it's like, I don't know, what am I, 25 years or something of doing this. Lifelong passion. I've used my understanding of personality to lead teams, drive business results, coach leaders, use it in hiring. We are predominantly a hiring organization, so we solve hard hiring problems for organizations. We use DISC, personality, aptitude, skill-based assessments. We have a full performance hiring platform. So from finding candidates to figuring out who's going to be the right fit in performance management, that's kind of our latest product offering, the Discovered Performance Hiring Solution there. We do coaching and team development. We help talent acquisition teams go from zero to hero. So we do everything related to talent acquisition. So, but I am not the expert in when it comes to coaching and personal development. So I brought Al and Deanna, who have spent their lives and their whole careers helping individuals and teams perform better. So Al, tell us, you started with New Horizons Learning, which many of you guys might know that name. It's like one of the biggest skill development learning organizations in really the whole world. Al, you were one of the kind of the forefathers of that organization, and now you're still at it. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Al Batinga with Digitized Learning is the name of our organization, and we're excited to be here to support your efforts. So I've been in education, training, and coaching since I was exposed to it in the military. As a teenager, I got to see world-class training, and it changed me. I mean, it literally changed me to see people who are playing at this high level, especially from a team perspective. And I've worked in high performance teams, right? And that's what Deanna and I specialize in, is building and developing high performance teams. And so when you talk about New Horizons Computer Learning Center, I joined them when I think we had about 10 or 12 people, and we grew it. It's obviously a very team-oriented organization, and we grew it to a couple hundred people. I had 70 full-time trainers, 50 full-time salespeople. And then we started, and I was president of that particular organization. And then the CEO of the company, Mike Brenda, started franchising. And in its heyday, when I left, actually, there was 70 locations. And we were bought by another organization. At its heyday, there was 350 locations worldwide. Wow. So it was in Saudi Arabia, it was in Hong Kong. I mean, it was a fascinating organization. So I went off and started consulting. I started building teams out in the public area. And I've worked for the Fortune 500 type companies, building teams and having a great time doing those kind of things. And so to give you a little thought on DISC, Deanna and I, myself, the core of our company is really DISC. So if you look at it, what's the purpose of DISC, right? I mean, we'll get into it a lot more than we are right this very second, but it's communication, right? It's communicating at the highest levels. And through my consulting environments, I can tell you the number one problem is always communication. The only time communication isn't the number one is when money is the big, right? That's about it. Other than that, it's communication. And here's the interesting thing. If you think about this, everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. It doesn't matter if it's a Fortune company, everybody knows communication is lacking in some way, shape, or form. We're dropping the ball. We're not communicating. We're not communicating early enough. We're not communicating to the right people. It's a tough challenge. And so what DISC does is help that. And we'll get into that a lot more. And so for those of you on the line that are global, Deanna and I have done work in Africa. I'm talking about from a Zoom perspective. We've taught several classes to Africa, several countries in Africa, Southeast Asia. We've done countries I've never even knew of, like Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, things like I literally didn't hear about. And we've even done work in Germany. Not Germany, but Russia, with Georgia, which is formerly part of Georgia. So we've done work in China, Spain, and a bunch of different places. And so we're excited to be here and to be part of this team, helping and supporting your efforts to utilizing a great tool to improve business results, right? That's what we're all about. Business results.
Yeah, awesome. Al, I love it, man. Yeah, I mean, understanding your personality and communication knows no borders or boundaries, and so something that we all have to be the more aware and cognizant of, and the more we harness our understanding of that, the more we can use it to leverage results. Deanna, you had an interesting background. Tell us a little bit about you.
So hi, everyone. My name is Deanna. I'm a coach, trainer, and DISC certified partner. My experience comes from the healthcare space. I spent over a decade in the healthcare space and organizations, running my own team, and then also coaching and consulting for other healthcare organizations. So I spent a lot of time there helping others understand their roles and their responsibilities, and really just driving impact for these healthcare organizations. And I would say I consider myself an advocate for upskilling. And so I leverage DISC assessments to upskill individuals and teams so they could reach their highest potential.
Awesome.
So that's kind of a little bit of background on what I've been doing.
Well, let's jump into it. So what is DISC and what is it all about? Help us understand high level what we're learning here.
So DISC is a behavioral assessment, and it gives you insight into your communication style, your preferences, and the way you do things currently, as far as from a communication perspective, from how you handle conflict resolution. So it's expansive. There's a lot to it. And so it's handled digitally, right? And you get a report back, and Fletcher will show you a copy of the report. And then through that, you work through DISC and you start to understand your style. So let me talk about this, and we'll continue to develop the concept of DISC. Understanding your style. So Fletcher, for one, he's a dominant, right? He's a dominant. We've looked at his style. I'm on this particular one. I'm an influence. So my influence for Fletcher, he's dominant with influence. For me, I'm influence with dominance. It's a fascinating concept. And so, for instance, if him and I were to do business, which we are, of course, right? We would want to know, I would want to know, which I do know, that he's dominance in his highest level of the DISC assessment, and influence just a little bit more, and then I'm the opposite of that. And so figuring those kinds of things out. So if you look at the dominance, right, let's talk about that. This trait is characterized by a person's drive for results. So you can see, working specifically with a Fletcher, he's going to be driving for, okay, what's the next thing we need to do? We need to get X, we need to get Y, we need to get Z, right? And so as an influencer, I'm going to have to look at that and understand that. I'm more, from an influencer person, I'm more of a personality developer. In other words, an influencer is, like you can see, outgoing, enthusiastic, wants to work with people, wants to bond with people, life of the party, so to speak. I'm not necessarily that, but that's a typical influencer, showcasing a personal, strong social skills. Deanna will tell you that when we go to lunch or any meal, right, by the time we're done, we'll know the people around us. We'll certainly know the server and know what their goals and objectives are. And I can't tell you how many relationships I've built over that because of my strong influencer trait.
But
right?
I always like to say influencers can make friends with light posts, right?
Exactly. And I'm sure she'll let us know when she catches me talking to a light post, right? I mean, that. So if you look at that dominance, by the way, let me give you some foundational concepts here. Every single one of these types is important to a company. There is not one that is above another type, right? All of us have all of these traits. All of us have all of these traits. So you are a dominant, you are an influencer, steadiness, and conscientious, all of you. It's just that there is something that is more dominant in you. And so for Fletcher, it's the dominant side. For me, it's the influence side. For Deanna, it's the conscientious side. And so you can see something surface, but we all are. And if you were a steadiness, right? A steadiness person, and Deanna is going to cover this a little bit more than me, is somebody who likes a good, strong structure, is step by step, right? But if you had an hour deadline, don't be surprised if that steadiness jumps into dominance, because why? There's a situational change. Yeah. And so all of these are important. All of these are equal. Every company, I've run several companies like many of you, I'm sure, and I can tell you, when you're overloaded on a certain type, it doesn't work right. If you get a dominant meeting where everybody in the room is dominant, you pretty much won't get anything done.
We all start bossing each other around.
Right. We'll break out in fights there, Fletcher. By the time this is done, it'll be bloody.
But if you have a room full of influencers, they'll just have a big party.
Exactly.
But they won't get anything done, right? They'll just be shooting the breeze and chumming it up for an hour, right?
Right. But we will have a good time. Right. So, Anyway, so the dominance part and the influence part, and we'll develop this as we go along. So let me just reiterate, all of these are important, and you need every single one of these in an organization. And the more balance you have, the better your organization is going to run, because every single one is important.
Well,
So
Deanna, maybe, Deanna, just share with us, like, what are some characters, explain to us what is, each of these 4 buckets, right? Give us kind of a characterization, help us understand a little bit how we can understand what a dominant personality is versus a steady, personality type. What are some attributes? So, Al talked a lot about dominance and influence. Maybe you can share a little more. Steady is conscientious. What are some, qualities, or what would you see in those people?
Yeah, so what you're going to notice is like steadiness, for example. They're individuals that are a little bit more patient. They're dependable. They're those dependable team players who prioritize like a harmony. They want like that stability. They want to have that stability in interactions with people. So like it says here, the traits represented by a person's patience. So they're patient. They're for sure consistent. And those are the people that are like supportive in the roles, right? You have the dominant person that is saying, hey, I'm taking, you want immediate actions, you want to get results. And then you need that balance. You need the balance, like Al said, you are a blend of all of these things, but that steadiness person is definitely somebody that is going to bring just that more team atmosphere and dependability that you're looking for. So you'll have those people in those types of roles. And then when it comes to the conscientious side, these are people that are a little bit more methodical in their approach. So they're more analytical. They'll be thinking things through. They'll have a little bit of they're a little bit more detail oriented when it comes to certain projects and things. So when you're asking a directive and you want certain things done, they'll be in their mind questioning, wondering about all the ins and outs. And for some people, that's not going to be important, right? Like if you're a dominant person, you might want to just cut to the chase, get it done. Whereas someone that's conscientious, and on mine, I'm conscientious with dominance. So I'm my first trait is going to be like, okay, wait, how do we want to do this? How are we going to go through this? And so, you definitely need that type of, you're going to lean on the accuracy if you're conscientious. You're going to want to make sure that it's systematic. We have a systematic approach to things. So again, like Al mentioned, these are all traits that we all need. And some of us are just going to lean on some more than others.
Yeah. Yeah, when you have a dominant trait, that means that you kind of tend to default to that behavior. Doesn't mean you can't cross over or you can't be better at, one thing, or sometimes be process oriented or detail oriented. Like in my case, I'm not, super high in conscientious or attention to detail, right? I'm the guy who forgets to attach things to emails and things, but when it really counts, I can stop and pause and make sure I get them right. It doesn't mean I fail all the time, right? And one thing I always appreciate steadiness people, because being a high dominant. So each of these, and I'll show this part here. So I'm gonna get into the results a little bit here. If I can pull up a sample report, I'll pull up mine so nobody feels there. But this is what the reports look like. So the re-engineer, this is kind of, again, our version V14 or something of this, but, we get a little overview, right? This is pretty high level. This is also very high level. This is not end all be all. This is just the types, just helps you relate to the personality types. So DIs, they tend to be comfortable in roles like these, and they tend to excel in roles, but it's not limited to this. It's simply there just to help people kind of relate, add some additional language. And then we get into this whole overall summary. But here is, I think, the big piece that I think is really important. And what Al, you were touching on before, right? You don't want to have a whole team of Ds, right? They'll all just start butting heads and like all trying to be the boss. And You probably wouldn't want all a team of steadiness people. They'll all just try to be helping each other all the time. Nobody would be taking the lead, right? If you have a room full of C's and conscientious people, they would over-engineer that widget till nothing ever got done, right? They would never finish the job because they would think of every possible end-all scenario, and the project would never get completed. If you had a room full of influencers, they would all just be having a big party and actually never do anything, right? But they're opposite. So when you get a report, and the reason why these reports are presented this way, because they're complementary and opposite behavioral types. So steadiness personality is the contrast to the dominant, and influence is the contrast to the conscientious type. And they're complementing each other. So in how they operate, their natural strengths, natural weaknesses, tendencies, right? So that's why they get presented that way. Because these are, for me, in my case, in steadiness, being empathetic and appreciative and patience, those are weaknesses. Can I be patient, empathetic, and appreciative? Yes, but it's something I have to work at, right? I have to consciously say, hey, I'm being too tough here. I need to take a pause and say, you know what, apologize for being too assertive, or coming across harshly, or or go into conversations knowing that, hey, I can be that way, and try to tone my language down, try to be a little more patient, right? So that's where a big part of this learning is knowing what you are, embracing that, but also knowing where you naturally sort of are weak, and so that you can be more conscientious and more aware, and so that you can modify your behavior. And so you see, the reason also why this is displayed this way is because we all have, as Al and Deanna pointed out, we do all share these attributes, right? I have some conscientious behaviors. I have some steadiness behaviors. I do bleed into that. There are some people who are right in the middle. They're like perfect circles. They're very rare, but they cut down every which way, right? So we get into those different high-level personality types, based on the individual. And this is what we were talking about earlier. What we're really cool. We took all of this content and we're using AI to make very, very custom evaluations or insights for the individuals, right? And we felt like that was really cool, because other products on the market really stuck with just using algorithms to spit out this information. And now we're able to, using AI, to really customize your results to you and speak to the individual, so you can have a deeper understanding when you're looking at these results by yourself. And then, of course, we recommend, having a coach doing a workshop, or doing a training session with your team, so that everybody on the team is brought up to speed, is aware of these things, and understands both the high level and some of the more nuanced components of this. And so definitely encourage you, if you have a team or a large organization and you want to leverage DISC to improve your communication, your teamwork, your business results, to consider having a coach come in and help facilitate those, right? We get into some sub traits to each of these as well. So that's kind of a cool thing that we do. So these are different attributes. They're not the end all be all attributes, but they are some of the attributes you'd find in a conscientious person. And we get into that because, again, we get into, like, we're all snowflakes here, right? I'm low on attention to detail, but I'm high on, medium high on getting my paper, my work done, right? I have a zero inbox policy, right? I don't leave any tasks undone at the end of the day, right? You can see my dominance traits are all through the roof, and got to be careful with my assertiveness and confronting people, and his competitiveness and influence. So you get all this, and then probably where the real gem is, and this is where we're going to begin to talk about how you start to begin to use these to leverage results here, is once you understand your dominant personality types, and once you begin to understand other people's personality types, you can begin to understand your stressors and motivators, and then you can begin to develop strategies for personal growth. I mentioned earlier, right? I'm a very low steady. I'm very low appreciative, very low empathy. And something I spend a lot of time practicing and trying to be aware of. And And I've spent my whole life being, really working on being more empathetic, being more caring, and being more patient in certain circumstances, right? And so these are great insights for me to learn how I can develop and just be a better leader, a better person, a better husband, a father. Really important for me, and being, especially because I'm such a high D. So that's a personal kind of example there. So let's talk about it, right? What are, how are you leveraging these things to better understand your personal motivators? Al, Deanna?
So the personal motivators, I mean, when you take your DISC assessment, like you said, you have this whole report, and as somebody that has managed teams and has led other managers and leaders to, have a more cohesive team, it's always important to understand who are you working with. Because you want to get certain things done. We all have a goal in mind. In a business, we have a vision and mission, right? And so we have specific targets that we want to get to. And if we have a mixture of everybody, you can't just be, delegating and doing specific things and and expect that everyone's going to follow the same path, right? So when we think about motivators, it basically refers to like unique drivers, values, and interests that basically help individuals take action. And so as you see here, it's like there's ways for us to harness this inner drive within all of us, whether you're a D, an I, S, or a C. And so if somebody is, for example, if I was an I, one of the drivers for an I would be they're motivated by social recognition and driving impact. Whereas maybe somebody that is a D is motivated by challenge and getting results done. And so there's a way that you can start to not only understand yourself and what motivates you, but how can you relay this and really get connected with your team? So by understanding those motivators, you're able to drive results in a better and more cohesive way.
What are the motivators for C's and S's real quick? Just give one quick example.
Yeah, for motivators for an S would be, they're motivated by stability and harnessing like relationships. They want and have like a harmonious relationships with others. And with a C, they basically are looking for accuracy, and they want to use their knowledge. They want to they want to use their skills and make sure that they drive impact that way. And so everyone's cohesively working together. But it's crucial to understand these things if you want to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, well, if you tell the software developer, like, forget it, don't worry about the details, don't worry about all that, they're going to get pretty frustrated, right? If I don't ask Al about, his weekend, he's going to be like, well, Fletcher doesn't really, he's not that, friendly, he's not that interesting to talk to, right? Or, if I say something mean, Deanna's, not an S, but maybe on our team here is, or Weston's a great example. He's a high steadiness. He's very empathetic. If I say something mean, he's gonna feel mad, right? That like I'm being mean to somebody, or being too harsh, right? And he's gonna go probably follow up with them and pat him on the back, right? And try to smooth things over, right? So yeah, so that's super important to just kind of have those awareness, and then how to leverage, put people in the right seats and give them the right tasks, right? So that they're excited to do the things that they want to do, but then also not steamroll or overlook or the things that they're most interested in, and dismiss those, right? Because when you start to dismiss people's personal motivators, that's where big conflict comes in, and it creates stress, right? So talk about the stressors a little bit.
Yeah, so when it comes to personal stressors, I mean, we need to identify, again, going back to the DISC, understanding everyone's DISC style is going to be of the highest importance, because you're going to know what could potentially stress somebody out, right? So it's basically what is going to be triggered in them, understanding what the triggers are, and it's situational, right? There's situations that cause individuals to experience high levels of stress. So for example, when Fletcher, you were talking about the model, right? And how they're opposites. Some, like a C and an I are opposites. So for somebody that's an I individual, they're very outgoing, they're very charismatic, that charming. They can, make friends with everybody. Whereas a C is a little bit more reserved, is a little bit more kind of like in the background. That could stress me out, right? Like if they're like, hey, go to this room with a bunch of people you don't know and make friends with everybody, that would lead to a lot of stress, right? And so when you talked about also making sure that people are in the right seat, right, for what their role is in the organization, it's highly important because you tell somebody to do one thing and they can go fly and they can do it. But if you, like I said, if I'm a C and you're telling me to go do a specific thing, that could lead to a lot of stress, a lot of overwhelm, and you're not, and as a leader, you're wondering, why is this not happening? Or why can't I do this with this person? And they go off and they take care of it. So it's just one of those things where we have to know what is right for each person and what could potentially stress them and overwhelm them.
So in some cases, we can tailor the role or the activities. Like I'm not going to send my engineer to a networking event and then to stand up in front of 100 people and give a presentation necessarily. It doesn't mean engineers can't. So here's a perfect example, right? Like that, I wouldn't purposely do that and expect that person to embrace that experience, to do well in that experience. But let's just say the engineer created a marvelous tool or widget, right? And they had to go be the technical expert and actually stand up, and there wasn't a choice, right? Like we really need Weston, our team is our engineer, Weston, I really need you to get up and give a technical talk to everybody about this, right? Like, I know you don't like it. I know you're really uncomfortable. You've got stage fright. I get it. So we could use this information to coach them up, right? We can say, okay, look, we understand this is putting you outside of your comfort zone. And Weston, now you also know this is outside your comfort, but now you know why it's outside of your comfort zone, right? So what can we do to help support you in that journey? Could I send Aaron with you? He's an influencer on our team. Maybe he could help break the ice, or you could co-present or something, right? Where maybe you feel a little more comfortable because you have a teammate there. You're not all alone up on that stage, right? So these are ways that you might use the understanding of these stressors to help either coach somebody through something, because sometimes in work we have to address these things. We can't just avoid completely. In some cases we can, though, right? We don't necessarily need to send our engineers to sales conferences, right? Like that's probably just a bad idea, right? So that's a lot of ways how I think about it. Al, is there anything, any other kind of little examples you could add for us?
Yeah, I think that on the last few slides, it's great for the individual, and it's great for their supervisors as well as their peers, right? So the report that you saw of Fletcher, in using that, if I were doing business, which I am, I would have read the report, which I did. So I can understand him at that level. Every new person that comes into his organization should be reading not only his report, but everybody else's, right? Because you're looking for seamless business results. And the more you understand what you're seeing here, the more you understand. If you looked at his graph and you saw that instantaneously, once you get used to this, you'll see certain traits that jump out, right? When you look at mine, when you look at Deanna, when you look at other people's, right? Like Emilio's, you'll see certain things that will help you connect to that person. How many times have you had these conversations where you figure out, well, I can't get through? Yeah. And one of the reasons is exactly what you've been seeing. It's because they think in a different light. They're a steady and you're a driver, and you're thinking driver dominance, and you're pushing, and that's not the right approach.
Yeah, I need to be a little more empathetic in my communication style, or to that person, and say, hey, Weston, I understand, that this is difficult, or, have some care, right. That, in that communication style, right. And help them through that and say, hey, I'm here for you. I know that this is tough or whatever. Let me, be more supportive, even though that's not natural for me to right. do that. But with that awareness, I can do that. Hopefully right. a little bit better.
Right. It could be as simple as that person needs time. You want that answer now. That person needs to regurgitate it and think about it for 20 minutes, or 30 minutes. per day, right?
Yeah.
And so you can see how you can actually utilize this to get much better results.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. So one of the interesting things, I'll tell a quick story here. So, my father, obviously, he was a coach and assessment creator. He created over 30 different assessments, many of them behavioral assessments, and all tools that we provide for organizations, mostly in the hiring context, but this one obviously being the personal and team development context. But he taught me from a very young age, when you meet somebody, size them up. Not like in a mean way, but like, when you meet somebody new, think to yourself, like, which personality type are they, right?
Mm.
And that's a great way to practice this, even without seeing their results. Right now, you might be wrong, you might guess wrong or whatever, but think about it. But that exercise of saying, hey, I met Joe and he came across as very reserved, he was very thoughtful, he was very methodical in what he said, very intentional. Maybe he's a C, right?
Yeah.
And then use that. And so this is where you use it, and we'll give an example later how you use it in sales and customer service, by practicing and building your awareness here. So how do we use it as growth areas and strategies?
So think about what we just talked about, right? Our motivators and our stressors. And so what we do is we compile that information, right? The report will talk about these. You saw Fletcher's, it has motivators, it had stressors. And so you want to start with motivators first in general, right? What motivates Fletcher? What motivates Deanna? What motivates Anna? And you come from that perspective. Now they do it themselves, right? What motivates me? And Fletcher made a statement earlier that some of you may have caught, right? He said, get the right person on the bus and then get the right person on the bus in the right seat. And so taking this into consideration, it's by the way, that's from good to great, right? The concept of putting the right people, hiring the right people, which they specialize in, right? Hiring the right people, and they're going to help you on that. And so when you hire the right people, then you want to put them in the right seat, and DISC will help that, right? If you think about that, you don't want somebody who is demure, nothing wrong with that, by the way, in an outside sales position. For obvious reasons, right? Because in the outside sales position, you really have to get out there and jump out there and cold call buildings and things like that. And so you can look at this from a growth area strategy. And there's two places to go. One is our goals, right? You got goals and objectives. And what Fletcher talked about earlier was, what am I doing and where could I even be better, knowing that I'm a dominant and I know I need to be more empathetic. So that will be put in your plan, right? And so one of the things that we do, Deanna and I do in our workshops, is at the end of it, we talk about what's next. How do you apply all the information that we're talking about to put it in your plan so you can grow from it and you can move forward, right? So you got goals and objectives, right? Here's where we're at. Here's where we need to be. So you've got these growth strategies. And here's my DISC. And here's the things that I could improve, because you have to conscientiously look and say, it's not serving me that I don't have empathy. It's not serving me that I don't have patience, right? All of these kinds of things. So you can strategically look at the growth areas, and we can help you with that and are excited to help you on that to move you from here to there, right? What's the goals and objectives? What's the company strategy? Where's the company need to go? And you, as maybe you're HR, maybe you're a manager there in the organization, you can utilize this to make sure you have the right people in the right seat, as well as the right strategy, right? So you've heard this 100 times, right? I treat everybody the same. Well, that doesn't really work, because everybody has a different personality from a perspective on. Some people, this is my experience, right? Some people I can be very direct, and I will ruin their day for the rest of the day, maybe even the week. Mm-hmm. I have to tone that down. Now, am I treating them fairly? Not if I deal with somebody who does not like direct conversation and I give them direct. Anyways, those are things you can learn through DISC, and you can understand it first about yourself, and secondarily about all the people around you, whether they report to you, you report to them, or they're your peer, right? There's so much there that you can learn from. And huge part of this is growing from it.
Yeah. Yeah, like for me, I should probably every day make it a point to ask somebody how they're doing, how they're feeling, right? That would be one small step if I'm following like an Atomic Habits recipe, right? Which I'm in the middle of reading. I could take I could be 1% better at just, remembering to just stop before I get into a conversation with somebody and just say, hey, Anna, how are you feeling today? How are you doing today? Right. So that would be an example of how maybe I could be better at, showing some empathy, right? Practicing empathy, right? Awesome. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff here. So let's get into, how do we use DISC to impact results? So I think we can do this by sharing some stories, right? So I think there's a lot of ways that you can do it. And we've got 5 little stories here. I think we're doing decent on time. We'll try to do it quickly. Here's a story here. My friend Robert Towner, I think he's here on the webinar joining us. So I'm stealing your story, Robert. Sorry. If you guys are looking for a sales coach, by the way, this guy was like 15 years in a row President's Club winner. And now he is a sales coach and consultant. And I talked to him last week, and so I stole your story. I'm trying to give you full credit. If anybody wants to talk to trying to build out their sales team or get better sales results using DISC, you definitely hit me up. Send us a note. Shoot it to info@thehighertalent.com, and I'll connect you with Robert for sure. But he told me the story. He has this client, as an entrepreneur, and she owned a property management company. She's a high D. And, anyways, she was struggling to close new business, right? She had leads, she had sales calls, but people weren't buying. And after going through a DISC training session, she was really a lot more aware of other people's behavioral types, personality types, so that she could modify her approach in those sales conversations. So, the high C's, she would get into more technical detail about how her service helped. For the steadiness people, she worked to build, better relationship and showed some empathy about some of the challenges they had. For the influencers, she chummed it up with them and, shot the breeze and, talked about their weekend. And the funny thing about this story, Robert tells me, is that he finds out that she like ghosted him. Like he didn't hear from her for like a couple months, and he's like, what happened? Like, was this really that? Like, did I totally miss the bucket on this? Finally, he gets back in touch with her, and she's like, oh my God, you changed my life. She was so busy handling the new business that she had gotten that she didn't have time to she's a high D too. She's like not super shoot the breeze with you and chit chat. She's super direct, right? So she's just like too busy just dealing with what's in front of her. But finally, when they reconnected, she's like so thankful and so happy and like doing video testimonials for him and like just gushing about how much new business she was able to generate because she had a better understanding of her styles, her strengths and natural strengths and weaknesses, but also of a better understanding the other people she was coming in interaction with. So this also applies to customer service. You have a customer service team, know who's on the other side of that transaction, right? Are they a C, a D, an I, an S, right? You can better serve them and they're going to be happier. You're going to get better customer service scores and more loyal customers if you are better at identifying who you're dealing with, right? So you can serve them in a way that they're going to feel more taken care of, right?
Right.
So Al, you had a really great, kind of story here about how you improve leadership skills. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the projects I worked on was at NovaQuest Infosystem, which became the largest reseller in Los Angeles. And they had a new sales manager there who was struggling. She came up from the ranks. And, a lot of times a great salesperson is not a great sales manager. In fact, the majority of the time that's true. They have a different personality and they have different traits and they're different drivers and motivators and, stressors and all of that. It's a different job. And unless you're aware of that, don't be surprised if the success doesn't come like it did. So they called me in and they said, Al, we need you to work with this sales manager. And she had a team of about 10 people, right? And so one of the concepts there is we really had to go underneath it all and see what the personality types. And so DISC was the driver initially for helping us identify everybody around that specific area. And so it took me, I stayed there for a year. I worked there full time on this project for a year, but got her to change her outlook, got her to change. I can tell you that even understanding, actually, Fletcher just talked about it, right? Even understanding DISC at a basic level, you'll understand that not everybody's like you. So I'll tell you what the biggest failure for salespeople is: selling like how they want to be sold. Now, is that true? Or is that majority true? Or is that kind of sort of true? And for most, they don't understand. There's different people out there. And so I got lots of stories about how people sell how they like to be sold, and they fail miserably much of the time, if not most of the time, because they don't understand fundamentals like this concept here. We're all different in so many ways. And if you have the ability, like Fletcher talked about, to identify people after a few minutes, you're going to sell at a much, much better level. So anyways, I spent a year there working on that project. And when I left, it was flying. I got a lot of great things coming from there, and they moved forward. And I think it sold once or twice after I left, but it was a lot of fun. And if you look at it, the thing that drove the business result was the communication.
Yeah.
And so from her lead, by the way, she was able to train, and with my help and support, the other 10 salespeople, and we moved that team forward. And they were very, very successful. And it was a lot of fun, and it was eye-opening. Communication was at the center. DISC helped that concept surface. And so we could go from a great perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and sometimes these things do take time, right? So today is an introduction to the topic, and it takes that constant practice and awareness, and what I do and sizing people up, and what my father taught me to do, right? It didn't just happen like the next person I met, right? You got it wrong a few times, just to say the least, right?
Yeah.
I thought this was a good one. Deanna, you had this experience dealing with conflict, right?
Yeah, so I was doing coaching and consulting for a healthcare organization that had about a team of about 20, but they had different departments. They would do different things, and for whatever reason, their wires were just crossing. The owner, which was also the person that was the doctor, it was having there was like two parts that were going on there. So the billing department is a huge part of an organization, period. It doesn't matter who you are. And just things were not aligning anymore. For some reason, someone had left, things had been switched, and, you follow processes, but sometimes there's just this lack of communication and things were just getting stuck. So you just started seeing that, billing was going down, collections were going down, things just weren't happening. And when I went in there, I just noticed that there was just a difference in everybody's mood, productivity, and just what was being said. Everyone was saying this different thing. So we went in there, and I basically leveraged the DISC assessment. And just at leveraging the DISC, them understanding the different styles, it's more about like awareness. I think what happened here was it was a lack of awareness and bringing people together. And so what we were able to do with the DISC was just increase people's awareness. Everybody understood where they were, especially the stressors and motivators, right? That was like a huge eye-opening part for not only the doctor, but for everybody else that was like ahead of a department. And once they understood that, they were able to really work more cohesively as a team. And so what happened is, people started to like each other again. They started to like the work that they were doing, and they just worked better together overall. And so realistically, collections started going up and things just started to move again. And so I think that sometimes you just need, the DISC or somebody that's objective to go in there and see what's happening and then just unify. And so I was fortunate to work with them. It was very fun. It was very fun for me to kind of see that change.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always get too excited on these things and share. But look, if this is something that's interesting to you guys, just want to make sure that anybody who wants to, I'll pull up my thing here. But anybody who wants to put on a session, we have. You can buy more DISC assessments. Obviously, if you're here today, you've gotten 10 for free. But if you need more, you can buy those here. And then also we could do a workshop for your organization there. So that's good. And I'm going to put a link to this landing page here so that you can do that. If I can find the, oh, there we go. So there's that. So you can check that out. If you're a larger organization, like you guys are in the process of working with the County of Los Angeles, large organization, they're very customized program, lots of different teams, lots of different dynamics. You might want to schedule a call with one of our client success folks, and we can help you customize a training workshop or an advanced workshop or series of workshops there. So those would be some other options. If you are an individual, so for individuals, we have these training sessions open to the public. You might want to check that out there. So those are $300, and we're putting the next one on, what is that, August 16th there. So you can check that out as well. And then Anna, you can drop a scheduling link in there and our contact information if you are interested in learning more, if you have questions, or you want to, again, customize how these programs are rolled out. We have an off-the-shelf program there that's $700. You can sign up for that. We'll get you scheduled, make sure everybody's got their DISC reports, that we do those over Zoom. We do have in-person options as well. And again, those kind of custom programs. So if there's a particular problem going on in your business as you want to, learn how to use DISC for to assess, to deal with that, let's say, that conflict or that challenge, or a leader who's maybe not, who's struggling, those can be something you can do there. And then the last thing, if you're interested in using DISC or behavioral assessments for hiring, obviously that's what we do. We see this quite a bit, but we see this quite all the time, actually. But I was working with a pet med pharmaceutical company. They were an online pharmaceutical company, and they literally had 100% turnover in their sales and customer support teams. So they have these two teams, and responsible for sales and customer service. And they had about 100 people, it's like 93 people. They literally turned over 93 people every single year. And by going in and implementing some assessment tools, they reduced that to less than 10 people being turned over per year in those departments. Again, that there's an awareness, but there's also getting the right people in the right seats and leveraging the assessment. Now, the assessments that we're using here are all for personal development. So we want to make sure, if we're going to use a behavioral assessment, that it's specifically validated and used for hiring. And so those are different tools. But if you're interested in learning how to use those tools, which we offer, again, you can connect with one of our team members. We can do that. So there's one tool for this team building, personal development, self-awareness, personal growth, right? And there's different tools that are also same principles, using DISC to help make sure you're getting the right people in the right place. We also offer a whole host of other aptitude, skill-based, custom testing, a whole suite of anything A to Z hiring. If you have a problem with hiring, we solve that problem. If you're not getting enough applicants, if the applicants aren't working out, they're turning over, they're not working out as good, we have different tools and assessments and processes or programs to solve those problems. So like, I know a common problem today is, you can't get any applicants. I mean, we typically 10 to 100x the volume of applicants when we go into organizations and we help them overhaul their talent acquisition strategy, right? And from that, we then leverage different types of assessments to select the very best people. And that's how you end up with results where, turnover just plummets, right? And results improve too, right? I'll skip this one. This is a personal story of somebody who's been with me for a long time, but briefly, she's an S who's typically not considered, usually not considered a sales personality, right, Al?
Yeah.
You usually don't want to be in sales. But through understanding her natural strengths and weaknesses and her personality, she actually has become a top performing salesperson within our organization. So this goes back to something you mentioned a bunch of times. Just because you are dominant in one personality type, and that means you have natural tendencies to certain types of activities, job activities, doesn't mean you can't be successful in other types of jobs. If you're an S and you want to be a salesperson and you really want to be a salesperson, there are plenty of very successful high S's who are great salespeople. And why? Because they're very empathetic. but they have to learn how to also be direct at times. And they also have to learn to overcome the fear of asking for the business and things. But that awareness taught her, like, okay, there's things that don't come naturally to me, but now I know what those are and I can work to get better at them and be more aware of that. And the end was she, makes 5x what she's ever made before, and her quality of life, her standard of living, and everything is much better. And she does still leverage her own natural strengths and weaknesses. So there's really cool things you can do there. So if you're interested in implementing, again, check out the landing page, sign up, send us a email, info@thehighertalent, and we will work to answer any questions that you have or get you set up with a custom program. We also, we'll find in here somewhere, got a Calendly link here you can use and jump on and schedule a call if you'd like with one of our team members. So that is here as well. So check that out. And let's see, before we get that, if you are SHRM or HRCI, here are your SHRM or HRCI continuing education credits. So thank you for attending, and hopefully this was an interesting, helpful story. Anna, any questions that, I'm happy to hang out for a few minutes. If anybody else is hanging on here, I'm happy to answer any questions that might have come up that we didn't cover.
The main questions I saw was mostly on how they can get their test credits. So I wanted to kind of reiterate, as long as we get a work email, we can go ahead and send those out. I'm going to be going through and double checking everybody to make sure that you all received your links right after this webinar. And I'm basically going to resend it to everybody from scratch again. If you still are not able to get it, send an email. Like if you don't get it by tomorrow, you definitely should have got it by then. So send an email to info@thehighertalent or Anna@thehighertalent. Either one works. I put those both in the chat. And then you can also book some time. I know Fletcher put in a bunch of links, so you can book some time with us and we can walk through to see what's going on.
Yeah, we would definitely want to get those in your hands and allow you to get, if you showed up today, you have 10, so if you have a small team, that's enough to cover your whole team, right? Get everybody to complete these assessments, get those reports out to them. Again, I encourage you to, reach out, schedule a session with Al and Deanna, or if you're a larger organization and you have more unique needs or more logistics, schedule a call with us. We can talk through that and, create a custom program for you. And definitely something to enjoy and to have fun with, and to learn something about yourself, learn something about your team members. Give this gift to your team members so that they can learn more about themselves and so that they can learn more about their team members. Really, it's a great gift, and everybody should be aware of this. If you're in business, if you work in a company, they should teach this stuff in school, probably, right? But the more you talk about it, the more you think about it, the more language you can put towards it, the better awareness you can have, right? And then the more you can apply these principles in your daily, interactions. And again, those interactions aren't limited to work; they're even, in your own personal life, right? It transcends, both work and that as well. So great. Al, any closing thoughts for us?
Sure, I'll give you one statistic that came out of Harvard Business Review not too many months ago, and it asked people about self-awareness. So we've actually reiterated the concept of self-awareness, and 95% said they were self-aware. They'd raise their hand and said, we're self-aware, I'm self-aware. And they followed through with those specific people, and at the end of it all, they concluded that 10 to 15% are actually self-aware. The other 85% are not. And so we want to encourage you, because I can tell you, just taking the disc and then having your teams take it, you're going to find so many aspects that you're going to have aha moments. And by the way, if there are things on there that you might not agree with, that's okay. It's not going to perfect you. It's not going to say this is how you are, right? There are things on there that I look at and I question. But by and large, I can tell you I've been involved with assessments like Fletcher decades now. I hate to age myself, but decades. And I can tell you there are times when I don't, but the majority of the times for DISC, like Fletcher talked about, right? It's using AI. It's been developed. The DISC has been around 50, 60 years. I don't know exactly, but
Longer than that, yeah, hundreds of years, really. And it's really actually based on psychological science. It's like, thousands of years old, right?
right, exactly.
Because look, we are all humans. We all have these personality types. We all lean heavily or moderately or somewhat towards these different behaviors. And we all have sort of our default way, and then we have what happens in different situations, and then it changes or becomes more exaggerated or less exaggerated. So there's a lot to it. It is very nuanced, and it's really a snowflake thing, right? I mean, everybody's unique, everybody's different. And as you've mentioned, Al, I mean, especially with the self-discovery assessment, these self-discovery assessments, when you complete these, it requires you to be brutally honest with yourself when answering the questions, right? When we use ones for hiring, we have lie detectors. We know when people are not being self-aware. We know when they're telling us what we think we want to hear, right? Now, it doesn't mean we can tell you who they are. We can just tell you that we can't trust their results, right? In those cases, right? But yeah, the bigger picture is, okay, you're going to learn something about yourself, and something's going to resonate with you. But even when it doesn't, it forces you to think like, well, okay, that doesn't resonate with me, but what does, right?
Right.
And having an open mind and being willing to learn, or willing to be self-aware, to grow your emotional intelligence. So this is a great foundational emotional intelligence development tool, right? Assessments, DISC assessments are. And it's very, it's challenging as human beings. None of this stuff normally comes all that naturally to us. So, just the more you talk about it, the more you do it, the more you think about it, you reflect on it, disagree with it. Great, fine, disagree with it. But then, okay, if you disagree, well, then what are you? Then think to yourself, well, if the test tells me I don't like doing attention to detail work, right? And I go, well, I love it. Well, okay, great. Well, then what does that mean then, right? Take that and go, hey, well, I love detail. So what should I be doing differently to, do that? So.
Yeah. So one more quick thought. Make sure when you take the assessment, it's how you are today, not how you want to be.
Yeah.
So that will skew results lots. So just look at it from that perspective. It's almost like saying, what would everybody around me answer this? I mean, you're the final, but make sure it's what you are today.
Yeah.
That will give you much, much better results.
And especially with a tool like this, there's no right and wrong answer, right?
Right, exactly.
This is all about self-discovery. It's about learning more about yourself and others. So, there really is no right or wrong answer. And that is a common hang up. I think, high C's tend to overthink this thing, right? Overanalyze it, again, they got to kind of get over it and say, okay, well, just answer the question, pick the thing that fits you the best, right? But yeah, have fun with it, enjoy it. Look for the learnings in it is the best thing, right? Being resistant to the information or what you find out about yourself really, is not a super productive approach to it. But all of those are in the instructions. They're reiterated over and over again, just to remind people like, hey, this is for you to learn more about yourself. And so, again, we can have fun with it and enjoy it and, get after it there. So awesome. Well, Al, Deanna, really, really appreciate you joining us today, sharing your insights, sharing some of your stories there. Sorry we went over a little bit. I always get carried away on these things, but look forward to connecting with more of you guys in the future, and we'll see you all soon.
Yes, absolutely. Bye.
Bye.